Because there are several different configurations of the iFOSC, confirm the closure is the correct configuration for your installation. You can find this information on the side of the shipping container. Note, this iFOSC is a 48-channel configuration. Open the box and verify you have the following components and accessories: gel block, strand mounting hardware, 2 bags of accessories, base, dome, and clamp assembly. Open the closure by releasing the dome to base clamp. Remove the dome by sliding it away from the base. Set the dome and clamp aside. The reflective white tape applied to the base indicates to technicians in the field that this is a special use closure and not a standard splice closure. Once opened, we can begin to identify channel and tray assignments by viewing the labels on the sides of the splice trays. Starting at the bottom, we have the DWDM filter tray. Note, opening the cover of this tray will void the warranty. Tray 2 is ITU channels 14 through 25 and the common fiber. Tray 3, ITU channels 26 through 37. Tray 4, ITU channels 38 through 49. Tray 5, ITU channels 50 through 61. Tray 6 is transmit and receive test points and express. Now let's look at an individual splice tray and see where we will need to interface the incoming fibers. Note, fibers come coiled and must be carefully uncoiled and dressed into the splice tray prior to splicing. Now that we have the closure opened up and ready to be installed, we need to prepare the cable or cables that will be terminated into the closure. Prior to cable preparation, reference the mid-span and butt end lengths, which are shown in the installation instructions included with each FOSC 450D. The length shown for mid-span will provide for 1 loop in the slack basket and 1 loop in the splice tray. This length can also be used for a butt entry. Begin by preparing the fiber cable that will connect to the iFOSC common input. This will most likely be a low-count fiber cable, as remote PHY only requires a single fiber input regardless of the channel configuration used. Cables must be installed through the base prior to termination. After fibers have been terminated, it is not possible to add the base, resulting in undoing much of the installation. Install the cable into the closure using one of the lower ports on the star bracket. Next, we'll connect the access closure feeder cable. Note, if an access closure is not utilized, install individual cables connecting child nodes to the iFOSC. Once the feeding cable and distribution cable have been secured into the star bracket, install the gel block and base. In this next step, connect the common fiber to the feeding cable. Route the buffer tube from the feeding cable, which will splice to the common, 1 loop into the slack basket, out and around the tray tower, and up to tray number 2, which shows COM on the side. Secure the buffer tube to the tray using felt tape and tie wraps. Identify the feeding cable fiber that will be spliced to the common fiber and loop once around the splice tray and test fit the fibers to the splice chip they will be spliced into. Cut excess fiber length and dispose of properly. Coil up all unused fibers and store in the tray. After the fibers have been spliced and the splice protection sleeve has been installed into the corresponding splice chip, replace the clear cover and close the kickstand on the tray above the common tray, and we'll move on to terminate the ITU channels to the child nodes. Now we will connect the ITU channels to the child nodes. It is important to note that even number ITU channels will be connected to the downstream or forward fibers. Odd number ITU channels will be connected to the upstream or return fibers. Identify and document the proper buffer tubes and fibers from the cable that connects the iFOSC to the access closure for ITU channels 14 through 25. As with the feeding cable fibers, route the buffer tube one loop in the slack storage basket and then out and around the tray tower. Going back to the common tray with ITU channels 14 through 25, engage the kickstand and remove the clear cover. Route the buffer tube to the splice tray and secure the buffer tube to the tray. Identify and route the fibers one loop around the splice tray and test fit the fibers to the splice chip they will be spliced into. Cut excess fiber length and dispose of properly. Route the fibers one loop around the splice tray and test fit the fibers to the splice chip they will be spliced into. Cut excess fiber length and dispose of properly. Identify ITU fibers by locating the small flag on the fibers showing the channel number or by the color code. Test fit the ITU channel fibers using the one loop method to the corresponding outgoing fibers. Cut excess fiber length and dispose of properly. After the fibers have been spliced and the splice protection sleeves have been installed, fit the splices into the splice chips. Reinstall clear plastic cover and close the kickstand. Continue connecting all remaining ITU channels to the child nodes using the same process used for ITU channels 14 through 25.